Hello, welcome everyone. We're went ahead and just started the meeting. I'm going to give folks maybe an extra 60 seconds or so to make their way over. And I am going to go ahead and get us set up. Just as a heads up, we will be recording the session so that we can make it available to the wider public on our project webpage. So you'll likely see a pop-up that came up that notified you that the recording was starting. So we'll go ahead and get started here. 12:01, so we might as well want to respect everyone's lunch hour. Again, thanks everyone for joining our information session this afternoon on the Speed Safety Camera Program. My name is Laura Milstead. I am the Transportation Public Information Officer for the City of Bellevue. And in a few moments, I'm going to hand it over to Franz Lowenhurst, who's the city's Mobility Planning and Solutions Manager. And he is the project manager for the Speed Safety Camera Program. Joining Franz is Assistant Chief of Police Andrew Popachok, who's going to share some insights on enforcement and public safety and how our two departments are working together for the Speed Safety Camera Program. So as we move forward, just a current overview for today's session. We're kind of working our way through the welcome here, but we'll kind of provide some background on the safety trends that we're seeing in Bellevue and really the why behind the potential expansion of our speed safety camera program. We'll then dive more closely to look to see how where the proposed locations that will go before council are located, and a little bit about how the community feedback process and the technical analysis informed the selection for those locations. That should take about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll wrap up with a Q&A session. Hopefully we'll have plenty of time for that for any and all questions. And then just last few reminders, as I mentioned earlier, the meeting is being recorded so that we can make it available on our project website. And I welcome you to drop in your questions to the chat as we go along. I'll be monitoring those, and we'll start from that list as we head into our Q&A portion. Once we get to the Q&A, if you prefer to ask your question in real time, feel free to raise your hand using the raise function at the top, and I will go ahead and unmute you to ask your question. And I think that is it for meeting setup. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Franz.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. By way of background, in 2020, Council adopted the Safe System approach to advance Bellevue's Vision Zero goal, which is eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries on our streets by 2030. As part of that direction, Council identified the use and expansion of speed safety cameras as a key strategy to support this goal. To ensure steady progress, department directors from across the city review and approve annual Vision Zero action plans. The 2025 action plan, which we're currently implementing, includes a speed safety camera task aimed at updating program management to ensure an equitable and effective approach to improving safety for all road users. At this time, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Assistant Chief Popachok, we'll share some of the trends we're seeing on our streets today.
Thank you, Franz. As you can see by this graph, last year we had 36 serious injury and or fatal collisions. That was 34 serious injuries and 2 fatal collisions. And you can see that is actually the high point since 2015. This graph shows a total of 232 people who were seriously injured and 22 people who were killed on the streets of Bellevue. Next slide, please. So into 2025, we actually saw this trend continue, and we're seeing an increase in serious injury collisions and fatal collisions. As you can see, Q2 has showed a significant increase over Q1, and it actually is a significant increase over previous years as well. Because we saw this trend, we tried to get out in front of it with some communication with the community, trying to make sure they're aware of this growing trend and something that we were concerned about, as well as doing an emphasis patrol by our officers to try to slow people down in the city of Bellevue. That emphasis resulted in 10 reckless driving arrests, about 300 speeding tickets, and 25 DUI arrests. This is something that's a serious issue for us on our Bellevue roads, and it's something that we as the police department take very seriously and want to make sure that we're having all of our motorists drive safely on the roadway. Next slide. So why does speed matter? This is a real issue for us. If you can see here that speed is a significant factor in a lot of our crashes that happen on our roadway. Also, Bellevue, the way it is, it's a city that has lots of large thoroughfares. And unfortunately, some of those thoroughfares are areas where people can speed and do speed. So our goal is to make sure we're slowing people down, either by enforcement by our officers and also speed safety cameras, which the result of those cameras is to slow people down. Next slide. So let's talk about the history of this program. Our automated program actually started in 2009. We had 3 red light cameras and 2 speed zone cameras. Over time, it has expanded, and you can see the current locations of our camera systems. There's 3 now in school zones, and there's 4 red light cameras across the city of Bellevue. Next slide, please. So why cameras? So cameras are one step. They're not the solution to the speed problem in Bellevue. But what it does do is it gives us one other tool in our toolbox. For example, last year, our officers issued 4,462 traffic citations, compared to about 2,620 last year, which is a significant increase. We also made 247 DUI arrests. So on the roadway, we have our officers doing a lot of work out there. And the enforcement is actually driving down our crash rate. We actually decreased about 8% last year in our collisions. What the speed cameras would do is just one additional piece. It's our officers, when they're not on duty or their busiest times of day, when they're on other calls, it allows them to focus on those calls, but still ensure that individuals are slowing down on the roadways. And also provides around the clock. So even at 2 in the morning, these cameras are functional, and it isn't relying upon an officer to be there as well. So people know where these cameras are, they slow down. It's a tool to complement our traditional work. We will not stop doing what we're doing. We're still going to do emphasis patrols. We're still going to be writing citations. It is just an additional tool for our officers to use to make sure that the streets are safe. As you can see here, these cameras do benefit public safety and reduces the likelihood of crashes in these locations. Franz, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Last year, the Washington State Legislature passed legislation expanding where speed safety cameras can be used and how these programs are administered. A cross-departmental team, including the police and transportation departments, is considering a program expansion to align with this legislation and help reduce the risk of speed-related crashes across our community. Any future changes to program administration, camera locations, or vendor contracts will require council approval. Our review of candidate camera locations began with an evaluation of 95 sites, each eligible for camera placement under state law. Using our evaluation criteria, locations that scored 60 or higher were identified as proposed camera sites. This data-driven process resulted in 37 proposed locations shown on this map as dark green dots. Our safety analysis of the 95 candidate locations considered 3 evaluation criteria. First, locations on the high speeding crash network. That's where just 10% of streets account for 88% of severe speeding crashes. We're eligible for up to 40 points. Second, locations on the speeding risk network. That's where 15% or more of weekday drivers exceed the speed limit by 6 miles per hour or more. We're also assigned eligible for 40 points. And finally, locations on street with the high speeding citation rates measured by citations per mile per year. We're eligible for up to 20 points. By identifying strategic locations for speed safety cameras, we're taking a proactive step to protect people walking, biking, driving in Bellevue. The proposed program expansion focuses on safety, equity, and fairness. As you can see on this slide, the 37 proposed camera locations are spread across the city so that no single neighborhood or disadvantaged population is disproportionately affected. The program is also designed to protect your privacy. The cameras only capture images when a vehicle is detecting speeding, and by law, they cannot record the faces of drivers or passengers. Other key features of the proposed program include fines are lower than standard police tickets to reduce hardship. Individuals receiving public assistance may request a 50% fine reduction, and tickets are not recorded on driving records, do not affect insurance rate. Our proposed program expansion is shaped by community feedback. Bellevue conducted 2 rounds of online outreach, multiple public in-person engagements, and targeted sessions with stakeholder groups to ensure equitable participation. Some key takeaways from this outreach include speeding is a serious safety concern, and cameras are widely seen as an effective tool to address it. Top priority areas for placement include streets with severe crashes, street racing hotspots, and school zones, and cameras should be accurate, effective, and protect personal privacy. As Bellevue staff finalize the proposed speed safety camera program expansion, we're launching our 3rd round of community outreach. Your input on the proposed camera locations will help us ensure the program reflects community priorities and values. You can scan the QR code on the screen or visit the project webpage to take a brief questionnaire. It only takes a few minutes to share your thoughts. Your feedback is an important part of shaping a safe, fair, and effective program for everyone who travels in Bellevue. At its December 2nd meeting, staff will present the City Council with a proposal to expand the speed safety camera program, including recommended camera locations. If the council approves the proposal, staff would begin a phased deployment of a limited number of cameras in mid-26. Not all 37 proposed locations will be installed at once. Each deployment will follow a 6-step process that considers safety needs and staff capacity. This phased approach allows the city to evaluate program effectiveness, increase community awareness, and confirm operational readiness. Before any cameras are activated, the city will launch a public awareness campaign using newsletters, social media, and posted signage to ensure nearby residents and businesses are informed. Each new camera will also include a minimum 30-day warning period before citations are issued. Future phases will expand the program to additional high-risk areas based on crash data, equity considerations, and community input. I'd like to close by noting that speed safety cameras are just one part of Bellevue's broader traffic safety strategy. The city is also focused on improving roadway design, using smarter traffic signals, reducing speed limits as part of our safe system approach to achieving Vision Zero. Ultimately, our goal is simple: to make sure everyone gets home safely. And with that, we're open to questions.
So I'll just reiterate, I did not see any questions in the chat so far, but you are more than welcome to enter them now. Or again, if you would like to ask your question in real time, feel free to use the raise hand function at the top and I will go ahead and unmute you. Justin, I'm coming to unmute you now. Let me just. All right, you should be good to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your time in presenting all of this information. I just had a quick question about, I've been seeing some stuff lately about, very recently, I guess, which is why it came up for me to think about the federal government accessing like license plate powered cameras and using that data for immigration enforcement or other kinds of tracking of people who live in places. I guess specifically in Washington as well. So I was curious about how we're thinking about people accessing this data pipeline, these systems, and like, is there any concern about that as we add more cameras that while the state government has said they can't capture face data, your license plate is basically a fingerprint for your car and can be used to track you as you're going around these places. So yeah, I was just curious any thoughts about that. Thank you.
I'll cover part of that. So I know the system. I've seen it on the news as well regarding some access points. That system is specifically designed to share your license plate data, compared to the system here, which isn't designed that way. The system there is specifically designed to track vehicle from place to place, or if that vehicle shows up out of state, communicate between police agencies. This doesn't work that same way. So I'm going to hand it over to Franz. I believe you were reaching out to the company regarding that. Is that correct? Just to confirm that information.
That's right. Our current vendor is Vera Mobility. I emailed them yesterday because I saw the same article that you're referencing and received confirmation that their cameras are not susceptible to the vulnerabilities that Assistant Chief Papachok referenced. So you would not see a headline along those lines for Bellevue speed safety cameras.
I believe our next question is from Steve. Steve, you should be able to go unmute yourself now.
Up in the right corner, I think.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. I just wanted to give my very strong support for the rollout of the speed safety cameras. I think they're going to be a vital tool for meeting the Vision Zero goals. And while I do support the grace period of getting people used to the idea of them, I'd like to ask what the justification is for the softer enforcement aspect of it. I'd really like to see tickets that are issued through this automated system be treated identical to tickets issued by uniform officers with regard to the fine structure and with regard to impact on insurance and driving record. So many of the people who are speeding, and especially excessively, are doing it intentionally. I don't feel that a soft approach is going to have any impact whatsoever on people like that. And I guess rather than posing this as a, you mentioned equity-based things, rather than posing it as reducing fines for people who are unable to pay, I would rather see that the fines be increased for people who have the ability to pay more, because they tend to be more, if there's no impact, people are not going to abide. And as the chief showed with the data, the city is falling way behind in meeting Vision Zero goals. And in fact, the data is going in the wrong direction. And I think as we get closer and closer to 2030, if we're really serious about doing this and making an impact, we have to get more serious about the tools that we use and how we use them. Thank you.
I can start off with a response. Thank you. Back that the fine rate is limited by state legislation. So the maximum allowed for a speed safety camera is $145. That can go up, that you can increase that by twice as much in school zones. So that is a limitation. And so just as a starting point, and I don't have the table in front of me in terms of the allowances for ticketing by an officer when they pull you over, but that is subject to how much over the posted speed limit you are traveling. So there's greater latitude in terms of the ticketing that can happen when it comes to an officer stop. And so that's part of it. The other reason for keeping the amount at a lower level is that there's ample evidence in terms of research done in other communities that oftentimes it's the elasticity of the fine rate to compliance. There's not a direct relationship per se in terms of a particularly high fine and compliance. Indeed, if you look at the limited deployments we have in Bellevue at this time, in terms of tickets issued, the recidivism rate for individuals who get a ticket is quite low. So as is, it often just requires a reminder. So this is really not intended to generate revenue. This is intended to bolster safety. And with that as the focus, that's why we're leaning into and complying with state law on this topic. I don't know, Assistant Chief Popchak, if you want to add.
Yeah, like I mentioned, this will not reduce our enforcement because these cameras will only be able to give out speeding tickets, red light tickets. It won't do anything about reckless driving. It won't do anything about illegal lane changes, no proof of insurance. Those are still enforcement options that our officers have, and we're going to continue to use those enforcement options across the city. This just adds on to their ability to do that in these specific locations. But it doesn't mean that we're going to stop doing what we're doing. We're going to be increasing what we're doing as far as traffic safety in Bellevue to try to make sure that our roads are safe.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. I believe our next question is from Chuck. Chuck, are you able to unmute yourself? As an alternative, if you'd like to put your question into the chat, we could also read it there. Or if there is another question that any folks have, Chuck, we can also make our way back to you or circle back to you after the next question. Okay. Let's. Dustin, did you have another question?
Yes, if there's time.
Yeah, why don't we come to you and I'm going to work on Chuck's text set. I'm going to try and unmute Chuck and we'll work our way back to him. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, this is probably a quick one. I'm assuming one of the things I'm noticing or thinking about when I look at the proposed camera layouts is one of them is going to be on the road that my condo complex is on. And I'm wondering if we've looked if there's data that's been reviewed about how the cameras will impact the overall traffic flow. One of the things I'm concerned about, but I don't have any data to back up one way or another, is like, is this going to slow down the flow or change how vehicles are getting between several of the lights, especially on 8th is where I live. And like, it's already pretty hard to turn out of my like driveway without having people going significantly slower and potentially backing up into the lights because of these. So are we looking at traffic flow and how these cameras impact traffic flow? And like, if so, like, is there potential for adjustments or changes to light timings and that sort of thing based on how the traffic flow is changing? If, for example, like it gets significantly harder to, get out of my condo complex as an example.
So one thing about Bellevue's, one of the really unique aspects about Bellevue's traffic signal control operations is that our entire network is adaptive and responsive to dominant flows and is constantly monitoring queue length and delay and adapting in the moment to those conditions. This is unique in the US. Our city is the only one in the nation to have 100% adaptive signal control. So, in response to your question, I am not aware of any findings from other communities that have experienced negative traffic congestion outcomes resulting from cameras. Even so, were that the case in Bellevue, our adaptive signal control would be monitoring and responding to those flows in the moment. So even if we're at a condition, it would be less severe in Bellevue.
Awesome. That's super good to hear. Thank you so much for the information. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll head over. It sounds like Chuck maybe has a few questions. Chuck, maybe we'll start with two, and maybe we'll come back to you for another round if that seems reasonable before we head to Elaine.
Okay.
Great.
So will speed assist patrols be reduced where there are cameras installed?
So the intersection itself, we're not going to stop the same person twice. If they run the red light, get a red light ticket, we're not going to pull them over again for running the red light. But there's no intent for us. Like I said before, there is other violations that occur. So it is not our intent to change our locations where we're putting officers. There's plenty of locations across the city that have speeding issues. We also have what's called the TSR, traffic service requests, where members of the community can let us know about speeding in their neighborhoods. So there is a lot of locations that we move units to and from across the city. So it isn't something like we're going to say, just because there's a camera there, we're no longer going to patrol these locations. This is an additional piece on top of it.
Well, that's great, because our neighborhood has requested and received special emphasis patrols regarding speeding, and they're effective. But then after time goes on, then they become not effective. And then we have to keep working it until people get the idea. Okay, thanks. A second question, Laura, or do you want me to wait?
Yeah, go for it. These are short and quick, so feel free to ask your questions.
Okay. Regarding the sighting of the speed cameras, what are the infrastructure requirements in order to be able to sight a camera?
Great question. So the 37 proposed locations are at a planning level at this time. What that means is we have an engineer going out and field verifying the potential to install, be it a permanent camera, which is what you more typically see. These are mounted on poles, mast arms, and alternatively, another technology that is gaining popularity, if you will, in terms of speed safety cameras are transportable units. They're typically the size of an ATM device and can be moved around to different locations as needs require. Each of these approaches have pros and cons. In the case of the transportable, they're entirely battery operated, but as you might imagine, they require a bigger footprint in terms of a pad to be placed. So there's pros and cons to each of these. Obviously, ADA compliance comes to play more so when you situate a transportable unit, sightline issues. All of these are characteristics. When it comes to permanent units, you need power. So there's a question of is power readily available? So what we're working through right now is a detailed review of each location to determine what kind of camera system would best be deployed at these locations. And so that's what we're referring to as the sighting of cameras.
Franz, has that surveying started? I've noticed a lot of markings in my in the area where one might be put.
No, so the sighting analysis has been underway for a couple weeks now, but there hasn't been any marking associated with them at this time. So it's just been out field verifying the the proposed locations, and but we haven't moved to that next step of figuring out where we might place a pad or put up a pole for mounting.
Okay, thank you. I'll hold off on my next questions.
Okay, great. We'll go to Elaine and then we'll make our way back to you, Chuck. Elaine, thanks for waiting. And Elaine, you should be able to unmute. You might have to press the unmute button at the top right corner of your screen.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
I totally support this. I don't have to share my personal story. I just really, really believe that all drivers everywhere need to have consequences when they don't follow the law, especially with speed. I'm a driver in Bellevue, a resident of Bellevue, and I do a lot of walking in Bellevue. And have experienced some pretty scary situations with drivers that drive too fast. So I want to say that I'm in full support of this. And my second question, I'm interested about the rollout. I'm interested about how, with our numbers of serious injuries and fatalities increasing in Bellevue, how we're going to get even near zero in 5 years. And can we roll these out faster so that we can achieve that, so that there's no families that have to go through the horrifying, devastating loss of losing someone in a road traffic accident due to a driver's inability to operate their vehicle.
So I said it earlier too. This is not a solution. This isn't going to make us go to zero just by putting traffic cameras up. Like I mentioned, we're seeing an increase in DUI arrests this year. People that are drinking and driving on the road cause some of these accidents, in fact, and serious injuries. So there's many different things that we have to work in cooperation between the police department and our enforcement side, the streets department and the design side, looking at the data and trying to get those numbers back down. So there's no easy solution to this. It's a very complex issue, and it takes all of us to try to do that. It's the community side of, like, if you're seeing somebody driving drunk, don't let them get inside the car. If you know someone's recklessly driving, call 911, let us know about it before they run into somebody, so one of our officers can take enforcement action against them to slow them down. And those are all steps that we all can take as members of the community or members of the city government to work together, try to drive that number down. But we're not in any way, shape saying that just these cameras is the cure-all, because that's not the case. It's a very complex issue with lots of different areas working on it.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that for me. I guess I'm idealistic and hope there would be an easy fix, and I hear what you're saying, and it's multifaceted. Yeah, I'm going to do my part as a community member to talk to people more about how they drive. So thank you.
And then it looks like, before I make our way back to Chuck, I see a question from Steve in the chat. Does the RCW allow for violations ticketed by speed safety cameras to go against a driver's, the offender's driving record? Could this serve as an effective deterrent for repeat offenders, for example, street racers?
So state law has this as effectively a parking ticket. It does not go on the driving record. And so that would, and it does not affect someone's insurance rate as a result. So that would have to change at the state level for that, for it to become more along the lines of what's being suggested.
Ron's going to add something to that.
Mhm.
So part of that, when you issue a speeding citation to someone, is verification of the driver, since people do allow other people to drive their vehicles, or if they're a company vehicle. So there's a difference of a parking ticket where the officer walks up, or a parking enforcement officer walks up, sees the car legally parked, and then issues it to the car. The citation goes to the vehicle. With this, because we're not taking pictures of the driver and we're not trying to identify who the driver is, it works the same way. It's identifying the car, the license plate, and issuing the citation to the vehicle. An officer pulling somebody over for speeding will verify who the driver is, be it driver's license, passport, other sort of ID, even if it's something where we end up having to QID fingerprint them in the field. We could identify who the driver is, therefore we're issuing the driver the citation. And that's the difference with this, is you're getting to a privacy issue as well for trying to photograph drivers, identify DOL photographs, and even then there are people who look alike. We don't it's taking that extra step, and that's why there's not a citation issued to a driver, instead to the vehicle, because it's treated the same way as that parking ticket, like Franz had said.
Thank you, Chief. Chuck, we're making our way back to you. Do you still have your additional questions?
I do, and a new
Awesome.
one. So
Go
this
for
is, yeah. So Chief, if I understand what you're saying is if somebody's exceeding the speed limit, the posted speed limit by 10 or more, it's just a parking ticket?
When an officer pulls them over, it's a speeding ticket.
Yeah, I'm talking
It's
about the
treated
cameras.
the way, I'm saying how it's treated. So what happens is that by the state law, you cannot identify the driver. We don't know who's driving that car. So by capturing the plate, it is treated like it's not a parking ticket. It's treated like a parking ticket in the sense that it's issued to the registered owner of that vehicle, no matter if the registered owner was the driver or not. It's attached to the car itself. It is a red light camera ticket, not a parking ticket, but it's processed like a parking ticket where it's attached to the vehicle and the vehicle registration and not to the driver who's identified by driver's license.
Okay, thank you. Franz, I have a question. I know that there's an effort to reduce speed limits throughout the city of Bellevue, and there are candidate streets and roads for that. Does that have to occur before a camera is put in place?
So it is a balancing act in terms of those two parallel activities, which is why we're seeking council authorization on the 37 cameras so that we can ensure that there's alignment with the speed limit reductions. You don't want to reduce the speed limit and immediately thereafter put a camera up, or put a camera up and then immediately reduce the speed limit. So it needs to sequence with a gradual phasing in period so that those two parallel efforts give the public the benefit of the doubt to understand what the expectations are. So that's why we're looking for concurrence on the 37 locations so that we can gradually phase these in, taking into account when those speed limit reductions occur.
Okay. Is it preferable to have the speed limit reduction done a year in advance?
We're still figuring out our standard operating procedures on what that rollout might look like, but that's probably along the lines of a time frame that would be something we would be looking at, but we haven't zeroed in on what that time frame is at this time.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions floating around out there? Otherwise, we might be at a good stopping point. And as I mentioned, this recording will be available on our public website here pretty soon. If you'd like to join the conversation for round 2, we're hosting another one of these Thursday evening at 6 p.m. But I just want to thank everyone's really thoughtful questions and really thoughtful engagement on this topic. This was a really great conversation, and really appreciate everyone taking their lunch hour to be with us. But Franz, Assistant Chief, anything else to close us out? Great, awesome. Well, thank you everyone, and enjoy your afternoon. Bye.
Bye.